The air in the bedroom hung thick, heavy with the scent of her lavender perfume and the sharp tang of unspoken words. I stood frozen, staring at the crumpled note on the dresser, its edges worn as if it had been folded and unfolded a dozen times. Intimacy only next year, don't insist. Okay. My own voice echoed in my head, flat and hollow, agreeing to her sudden, cold demand last night. I'd walked out, the door clicking shut behind me like a gavel. Now a day later, her absence screamed louder than any argument. The note wasn't the only thing she'd left behind. Her phone lay beside it, screen cracked, buzzing with a notification that made my stomach lurch. Meet me tonight. Usual place. I didn't want to touch it. Her phone felt like a live wire, humming with secrets I wasn't ready to face. But my hand moved anyway, trembling as I swiped the screen. No passcode. That alone felt like a betrayal. She'd always guarded it like a diary. The message was from a contact labeled simply J. No last name, no photo, just a single letter that burned into my mind. My pulse thundered in my ears, drowning out the distant hum of traffic outside our Brooklyn apartment. The words blurred, but I forced myself to read the thread. Miss you already. Can't wait to see you. Last night was everything. Each message was a shard of glass, slicing through the fragile trust I'd clung to. Yesterday, when Lila had sat me down at the kitchen table, her eyes avoiding mine, I'd sensed something off. Her hands fidgeted, twisting the hem of her sweater, and her voice was clipped, like she was reciting a script. I need space, Ethan, she'd said, her lips barely moving. No intimacy for a while. Not until next year. Please don't push me. The words had hit like a sucker punch, but I'd swallowed the sting, nodded and said, okay. I thought it was stress, her late nights at the gallery, the pressure of her first solo exhibit. I'd rationalized it, told myself she just needed time. But now, standing in our bedroom, her phone in my hand, I saw the truth clawing its way out. The apartment felt too small, the walls pressing in. The hardwood floor creaked under my weight as I paced, the sound sharp against the silence. I could still smell her coffee from this morning, cold in the mug on the counter. The living room was a mess of her, sketchbooks strewn across the couch, a half-finished canvas propped against the wall, its colors chaotic, like her mind. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but she wasn't here. She'd left for the gallery hours ago, or so she'd said. The memory of her rushed goodbye, her coat half on, her eyes darting to her phone, not at me. Had she been running to him? I sank onto the couch, the phone still in my hand, its weight unbearable. Part of me wanted to stop, to put it down and pretend I hadn't seen anything. But doubt had already taken root, spreading like poison. I scrolled further, each message a fresh wound. You make me feel alive. He doesn't suspect a thing. My breath caught, ragged and sharp. That was me. The fool who'd believed her tired excuses, her late nights, her sudden distance. I'd chalked it up to her art, her ambition. I'd told myself I was being supportive, giving her space to create. But this was something else. The clock on the wall ticked too loudly, each second a hammer against my skull. I remembered the early days, when Lila and I would stay up until dawn, her laughter filling the cracks in my cynicism. We'd met at a dive bar, her sketching strangers on napkins, me stealing glances at her over my beer. She'd been a spark, a burst of color in my gray world. Now that spark felt like a lie. Had she been pretending even then? Or had something changed, something I'd missed? I forced myself to stand, to move. The phone went back on the dresser, but its presence lingered, a ticking bomb. I needed answers, but confronting her felt like stepping into a minefield. What if I was wrong? What if Jay was just a friend, a colleague, a misunderstanding? The thought was flimsy, but I clung to it, desperate to delay the truth. I grabbed my coat and headed out, the cold October air biting my face as I walked toward the gallery. I needed to see her, to look into her eyes and know. The streets were alive with noise, honking cabs, chattering pedestrians, the distant wail of a siren. But inside, I was unraveling. Every step felt heavier, my mind replaying her words, her touches, her silences. The gallery was a 10-minute walk, but it felt like miles. By the time I reached the glass doors, my hands were shaking. The sign read Lila Monroe, unveiled, her name in bold, mocking me. Inside, the space was all white walls and soft lighting. Her paintings hung like confessions. I scanned the room, but she wasn't there. A young woman at the desk smiled politely. Lila? She left about an hour ago. Said she had a meeting. A meeting? The word twisted in my gut. I mumbled a thanks and stepped back outside. The city's pulse now a roar in my ears. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and for a moment, I hoped it was her calling to explain, to erase this nightmare. But it was a text from my sister. You okay? You seemed off last night. I ignored it. I couldn't explain this to anyone, not yet. I walked aimlessly, the city blurring around me. My mind churned, piecing together fragments. Her late nights, her guarded phone, the way she'd flinched when I touched her last week. Each memory was a breadcrumb leading to this moment. I ended up at a park, the same one where we'd picnicked last summer, her head on my chest, her laughter soft against the breeze. Now the benches were empty, the trees bare, their leaves scattered like broken promises. By the time I got home, dusk had settled. The apartment dark except for the glow of a streetlight through the window. Lila was there, sitting on the couch, her face pale, her eyes red-rimmed. She looked up, startled, and I saw it. The guilt, raw and undeniable. Ethan, she whispered, her voice breaking. We need to talk. The words I dreaded hung between us, heavy as the note on the dresser. I wanted to yell, to demand who Jay was, to make her feel the weight of my pain. But my voice came out soft, almost pleading. Why, Lila? Just tell me why. She stood, her hands twisting together, her eyes darting to the floor. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said, her voice barely audible. It was a mistake. I was lost and he was there. Her words were a knife, twisting deeper with every syllable. She didn't say his name, but she didn't need to. The truth was there, in her trembling hands, her broken voice. I waited for anger, for the explosion I'd felt building all day. But all I felt was emptiness, a hollow ache where love used to be. How long? I asked, my voice steady despite the chaos inside. 3 months, she admitted, tears spilling down her cheeks. I wanted to tell you, but I couldn't. I love you, Ethan. I still do. Her words were a cruel echo of the past, and I saw it then. The real betrayal wasn't just her with someone else. It was the lie she'd let me live, the trust she'd shattered while I'd been blind. I turned away, unable to look at her, and walked to the window. The city stretched out below, indifferent, its lights flickering like stars I could never reach. I'm sorry, she whispered, but it was too late. The note, the phone, the messages, they were all pieces of a truth I couldn't unsee. And as I stood there, staring into the night, I realized the worst part. I'd said okay to her distance, but I'd never agreed to this.